So with Kanja Chen, When I'm With You is the short animation film played at the Under 5 Minute Film Festival. You're from Burlington, Ontario, correct?
I am from Burlington, Ontario.
I'm from Niagara Falls. So
Ah,
basically, so quick hop to on the QEW. So there's not many film I've talked to not many filmmakers from Burlington, Ontario. How is there a film scene in Burlington? I'm just curious.
no, I don't think there is. I mean, there's a Milton Film Festival. I know that, and that's 20 minutes away. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, this is actually a fairly new thing. Getting into the short film world has been something that I've only started doing in the last few years, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I actually used to be a teacher for 20 plus years and ended up getting my dream job when I was offered a role for the reboot of Fraggle Rock on Apple TV. So that Fraggle Rock was a Jim Henson puppet show
Oh, this is,
and
yeah, down in Fraggle Rock. Yeah.
down at Fraggle Rock.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the newest Fraggles on that. And that experience actually launched me into like what are you going to do with your time? And I started doing my first puppet shorts, and then this is my first animated short.
So how did you get, just curious, how did you get that gig?
I mean, I've been in the puppetry world for the same amount of time that I was teaching for 20 plus years, but I was, I was always doing that on the side. And but with anything I do, I always say try to be the best you can be at it. So
Yeah.
you're learning a craft, hone it. So I did that with my puppetry. Started actually writing, so now I'm writing for film and television as well, and making short films. And like I said, I had done puppet stuff. Obviously, it's a logical, extension of what I already do. But
Yeah.
one thing I hadn't done is ever made an animated short, and I was like, this has to happen.
Well, we'll get to that in 1 second, but I'm just curious, like, how do you audition for as a puppet? Like, how do you audition for a puppet show? I'm just curious. Like, you have to like show your skills because people think that you just put a hand in the puppet. There's that ignorance to it, right? Where like it's pretty like it's like the $10,000 hour rule is in effect. I guess the master of the puppetry, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's tough. It's not easy. It takes years and years of practice. Especially for film and television. I try to explain to people if you've done puppeteering for film and stage, not only do you have to be kind of at the highest level in film and stage, but to try to transition to on stage to try to transition to television is different. Film and television is different because the camera is on you. And so you have a monitor that shows what you're doing. And so if you physically are going to your left on
Yeah,
my screen, my hand right now I can see is going to my right.
yeah,
And so it's your brain has to try to process that. So that's technically part of what you have to do, lip sync and height and emoting, but
yeah.
then you also doing a voice performance. You're also acting, so you've got to be a strong actor. So
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of things happening at once. But so to answer your question, I've been doing that for 20 years. So my skill level was a 20-year honed skill level.
Because I was watching there's this movie documentary on Big Bird, I think like
Mhm.
maybe 10 years ago, and they got into the meticulousness of puppetry and how Jim Henson was so much a perfectionist and he would yell at everybody if they got something like an inch wrong. It would be like it kind of amazed me like how crazy this world is, right? Like they're just perfectionists and they like everything's got to be meticulous. So it kind of blew my mind when I watched that film.
Yeah, I mean, the stories I've heard about Jim is that like super loving and supportive. I think that the part about being meticulous though is
Yeah,
something that as puppeteers you have to ingrain in yourself
yeah,
because it's one of the few rules because you have a monitor. It's a
yeah,
very few rules of performing allow you yourself
yeah,
to be a kind of director of photography. So like you actually can see where you are in the
yeah,
frame. You can correct. So you're doing micro corrections all the
yeah.
time, right? You're like, oh, that's not centered, or my head's in the shot. I gotta get my head out of the shot. So you are constantly doing not only your performance, but you want to add another layer. You are also a director as well, right?
Yeah.
For your own performance.
Yeah. I just heard that Jim Henson was a tyrant. So basically, no judgments. It's like he got the job done, right? Like people have their own process. So basically, I never heard of him being loving, but maybe that's like a different interpretation.
Yeah, I actually
Loving in
haven't
its own
heard.
way, I guess, right?
Yeah. I didn't hear the
Yeah.
tyrant piece, but I mean, like I said, the people who I've talked to have really talked about how how supportive Jim was,
Yeah.
and encouraging. I think that again, it depends on your perspective. Like if you have high standards, right? Like,
Yeah,
and as a
exactly.
performer,
Like you
if you
said,
have,
no judgments. Is
yeah, yeah,
that's like, yeah, he has high standards, right?
yeah, 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 as a
You're
performer.
hired on his job, on his set. You have to get the job done, and you can't waste your time, right? Because you make a mistake, and then it costs people everything money, right? So
Sure, sure. I mean, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that, Fraggle Rock really is an extension of Jim's legacy and the
yeah,
people that he's touched. And I have to say, my experience on the Fraggle Rock set specifically, because I never met Jim Henson, but my experience was an amazing environment of love and support. And so that his legacy was able to affect, those individuals who then affected me, and I'm able to take that out to the people that I give workshops for or help get into the industry as well.
so
Is
where can we see the reboot of Fraggle Rock?
So that's on Apple TV, Apple
Okay,
Plus. There is a first and second season, although Apple, I believe, has just signed a deal, and I'm not sure at what point, at what stage it's at with Prime Video. So Prime Video has the option of adding Apple TV to be able to see some of their catalog, or I think all
gotcha.
of their catalog. So
Well, I
so
got
a
Apple
technical.
TV. I want to watch it because I loved it when I was a kid, and I loved the stories. Like every episode, there was a story about outer space, and I do that with my kids, right? Like when they were tiny, like don't go outside, that's outer space. So I used to use
Yeah.
that line, right? So
Yeah, yeah, you'll be happy with the reboot. The reboot is excellent. We've already won a couple of Emmy awards, or one Emmy award, and many TV awards already. So check it out. Very bright, vibrant. The colors are amazing. It is practical sets. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, it must be CGI sets." They're not. They are practical
everything's
sets.
real.
Everything's real. Filmed in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
That's
This time.
amazing.
Yep.
Okay, so then you were a teacher, now you got this dream job, and now you're making animation films. So let's talk about When I'm With You. So obviously, like you wrote the screenplay. It's a 3 minute film, 4 minute film, but it's about a relationship with the grandpa. I'm assuming this is a personal film for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I mean, this is connected to my experience moving away from my family to film Fraggle Rock on the first season, and that was me kind of being left alone during COVID and a lockdown
Yeah,
in a one bedroom apartment, and really thinking about all the stuff that had happened in my life. And I had lost my grandfather. My grandfather very much was like a father for me, and I spent so much of my time with he's Jamaican, with my Jamaican grandfather, and I'm Jamaican. I mean, so both my Jamaican family and his influence on me uh, is so profound. Sometimes you need to stop and think about how the people in your lives really have impacted you, because it's easy to not think about those things, to just
yeah.
miss and mourn them. And as a father myself, I have three children. This one's specifically focused on the story's focused on my relationship with my daughter, who's my youngest. And I really was, sitting in this one bedroom apartment thinking about my grandfather and how he, even though he never got to meet my daughter, is profoundly connected to my daughter,
Yeah.
and how I say things and have said things and do things with my daughter that literally he taught me how to do. And so that was the catalyst for this story that I said needs to happen. And it was a way of honoring my grandfather. It was a way of honoring our relationship, and a way of acknowledging how he was able to continue that relationship with my children.
So it's 2D animation, classic animation, correct?
Correct. Classic animation. Yep.
And so what kind of like, so what's the process of doing like this film? Because it seems like it's all you in many ways. You're even the grandpa in the film, right?
Yeah, I voiced my grandfather. I've
Yeah,
been known to do impressions of my grandfather. Part of what I like to do with my family is I love to play practical jokes. So always try to convince my family that my grandfather was in the room, just by making his like noises as he walks and stuff.
yeah.
And I was really successful. So I kind of took that to the next level. So yeah, played my grandfather. The process for this was, again, it was during lockdown, so everything was me reaching out to people online. The film itself ended up taking about 3 years to make. I sat down, I wrote the script pretty quickly. I didn't have a lot of stuff to do, so I was able to write that script. And then I kind of went online and started trying to connect with different animators, and I found wonderful people, a character designer, and started actually with the character designs. And really started looking at those character designs, really loving them. And then I started going to animators and finding out, first of all, who could do something. I had to fund this all myself. So I was the type of person who was like, this is how much I have. Like, I don't have a lot of money. People are like, oh, Fraggle Rock, you must have had a lot of money. No, remember, like I didn't have a lot of money. I still
Oh,
was,
people
yes,
have
but
this weird expectation that everybody's a millionaire who works in the industry. But go ahead.
yeah, no, it doesn't happen that way. And you're still trying to make rent and stuff. But I ended up reaching out to a wonderful animator initially and talked about my vision, and I did some rough sketches and did like kind of like an idea of what I wanted the animation to possibly look like. They sent back their rough sketches. I edited it together to some music that I found. So I'm often very inspired by music. So I found this music that really I felt was quite emotional, and we started in that place. And the animator started animating and was wonderful. And that was probably like a 6 month process. And I kind of was like, hey, take as long as you need. Like, I'm not going to pressure you to get it done soon, because I want to be able to do it for, what I can afford. And this is not your full-time gig.
Yeah.
So we kind of did it that way. And then that person ended up running into their own personal issues. And we struggled for the next couple months after that, or a few months after that. And 9 months in, and the person ended up having to back out. And all we had was maybe like a few animated seconds, maybe we had 10 seconds worth of animation.
Gotcha.
And then so it was like, okay, back to the drawing board. Like, I have to find someone else who like shares the vision, who has the time, who can, work on the budget. And so that started a whole new process. I ended up finding another wonderful animator, and she was like, yep, I can do it, but I can't promise you how long. So again, I was like, if it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years. We're already like a year in. And so she took about a couple years to do it, and she really worked hard on making sure that the scenes were true to kind of my vision. Obviously, it's not super heavy animation with subtle movements, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of it's a stylized impression, which is what I love. Like, I love the idea that this is an impression, or it's a memory
Yeah.
of what had happened. And so we kind of went that way, and that aesthetic, and she ended up delivering the final animation maybe about 6 months ago, and then started the process of editing. So then I started editing it.
It adds up now talking to you on Zoom because the dad is you, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
Because
That's
you
me.
you look like the dad.
Totally. That's me. The
So
dad
you
is me.
animated yourself.
Yep. So the kid was me too.
Gave
So
yourself
so
some nice muscles though, right? So
yeah,
I noticed
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Only kidding.
Yeah. No, but the kid was me. I mean, it literally was that's how I looked. I gave the character designer pictures of me as a little kid and pictures of my grandfather. I think at the very end, a tag at the very end was in memory of my grandfather, and you can kind of see an actual photo of who he
Yeah.
is, and you'll see that, like, that's the animated character. It's him 100%.
So I
Um,
love the ending where it's basically the three generations. It's because, like not to sound flaky, but the spirit is there, right? Like, I've obviously like the older you get, people pass on, you know what I mean? So but they're still around in a kind of strange way, not physically, but then it's like just from your perspective, they're around. So you're trying to take care of your daughter in the film, and then your grandpa's influence is there no matter what, I guess, right? It's a great message. It's a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. And that's exactly what I was saying. And as I said before, my grandfather never met my
Yeah,
daughter, his granddaughter, but just those walks in the park and holding her hand is the same way I felt protected by him. He was very cautious with me, right? Like, he was the type of guy who would like make sure that I walked up on the inside of the sidewalk, not near the traffic, right?
yeah,
Like, so when holding your hand, because he'd say, like, if a car came up on the curb, I would rather hit
yeah.
me, type of stuff. And I did the same thing with my daughter. And so, like, just that little moment of walking in the park, I do feel like he's with me all the time. His spirit is with me all the time. And that's, whether you want to say that that's, like, literal, or just in
Yeah.
terms of the idea behind it, is that he is a part of who I am, an extension of him is me, to my daughter. So yeah, that scene was very important for me, just to kind of like bring it full circle.
Well, I think it's terrific. I think it's a terrific film. What did you think of the audience? We sent the audience feedback. What did you think? What they had to say about your film?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it's so interesting to hear what anyone thinks about your projects. For me specifically, this was an emotional project. It was a personal project. I wasn't even sure if I was going to ever share it with anyone. So I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to enter these into in a film festival. But I decided to do it, and then to hear some people talk about how it was able to connect with them on an emotional level, I think that that was probably the most significant piece to me is
Yeah.
the emotional impact that it had on people.
Well, it's a true. Are you gonna make other animation movies? Are you gonna make another one?
I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have your day job, I guess, the Fraggle Rock show, and then you want to take a course that you wanted to keep continue, I guess, right? You wanted to keep getting renewed.
Yeah, yeah. So we're hoping for a season three renewal. Yeah. And I'm also, so I'm writing and producing now. So I actually just had my first opportunity to be a supervising producer on a preschool CBC series called Go Togo. If you haven't seen it, just launched this fall
Okay.
on CBC. It's all about a little subway train named Togo and his two streetcar Stella and bus Wheeler friends as they help their jobs around Transitville. But that was an opportunity for me to write. So I'm a writer as well. So I write for television. I am a producer and a director, and I want to do more animation as well.
On that note, I can't wait to see your next film, and we can talk then. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this, and let's talk again soon.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks.